Hello. This video is essentially going to be our opinion on The Path. With me is Katrinonus.
Hello, everyone.
Alright, so let's get started.
Right, so who are we starting out with?
I actually thought we'd get start with The Path and the Forest.
The forest and the path.
Yeah, they kind of encompass everything, so
Yeah.
what did you get from it?
The path was like the basically walking through life blind, oblivious to like everything around you, just completely oblivious to all the bad things that were happening and everything um, that could go wrong. It was just this straight line that you just ignored everything else. While the forest was open and wide and filled with things that are different and new and things that the girls hadn't experienced before.
That's almost exactly what I got out of it as well. I felt that both of them at the same time were a metaphor for life. The path itself would represent a straight path without exploration, very boring, straight, and wasted. However, straying off the path leads to temptation and or death, the wolves. But at the same time, that equals a success.
You
Now,
learn.
yeah, exactly. Each of the wolves force the girls to mature, to grow up. And I think you mentioned that the website states this is a game
It's
about
a game
growing.
about growing up.
Exactly. So, actually, while we're here, what do you think of the grandmother? Any specific thing for that?
I haven't really thought much on her. I think I'm not sure really what to think of her because she's just kind of there, you
Yeah,
know. I'm not quite sure what to think of her.
and she's definitely creepy.
Yes,
But
I will agree.
after playing a bit more, I actually came to the conclusion that the grandmother is a wolf herself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because if you remember, in Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf disguised himself as the
The
grandmother.
grandmother.
As well, finding her results in failure. Now, usually the grandmother, or not the grandmother, the wolves represent death. Now, at the end of the path, such as the path of life, it's death, but it represents not growing up, not maturing, because they never thought for themselves. So that's their own little wolf.
Yeah.
That's how I took it.
So maybe the grandmother is the end of their lives, essentially.
Yeah,
It's
almost like
death.
yeah, like almost like the other wolves of the game.
Yeah. That's a very good interpretation. I like that. It makes a lot of sense, really.
After you play the game through a few times, which of course I didn't record, but you kind of start to be
Everything begins to make a little more sense. You get more enlightened every time you play.
yeah. Though of course this is just our opinion on it, so
Yeah,
we could be
everyone's entitled to their own opinion. It's like interpreting Silent Hill.
yeah we could be
Same thing.
completely off base. And speaking of the wolves, what in general, what do you think they represent? Because we can touch on them specifically later.
Um, the wolves in general are temptations, rocks in the road, things that happen in life that are out of your control that you need though. You need them so that you learn, you experience. You're not just walking through. It's not just you just it's not ignoring. It's not, let's say, other day um someone dropped off a lot of kittens in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
I rescued one. I didn't turn a blind eye to that little thing. I picked it up. I brought it home, and tried to find it a home because I knew I couldn't keep it. While some of the other kittens ended up on the road.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. But yeah, I agree. Metaphorically, they could represent temptation, the loss of innocence, even going as far as to say being forcibly mature due to a traumatic incident. And of course, literally, they would represent things they meet along their life that they eventually their death.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go in order of the characters I went through,
Right,
starting with Carmen.
Carmen.
She's different.
Very, very flirtatious. She's someone. She's. I think the website said she was like 17, I believe.
I believe she was 16 or 17, yeah.
Yeah, and she was someone just coming into sexual maturity.
Yeah, and she was already
But
very sexualized and self-centered,
yeah,
but in an immature way.
she didn't understand that, you know, it's hurt. It can hurt. That it's not just a game, basically.
Yeah, exactly. One quote that I didn't get a chance to show in the game. If you go to the lake as her,
Uh huh.
she says, I wrote it down here, I wish it were warmer. Then I could go for a swim, and perhaps, with any luck, be watched by some handsome forester. Which again shows that she's not very experienced.
Yeah, she's because I mean you don't you really don't want that,
No,
honestly.
because who's to say who he is?
Yeah, and I mean even so, you really don't want that from anyone unless you really trust them and want to be with them because of the fact of you really don't know if there's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Exactly. Good metaphor there, or a good saying. But, yeah, she's very inexperienced, and yet she feels like where she's so sexualized, but she doesn't have any experience. She hasn't learned good decisions regarding it.
Hmm.
So, what'd you think of her wolf, the forester guy?
The forester guy.
Yeah,
He,
Mr. Axe
he's
Murderer.
yeah. He seemed very, you know, like what you would expect from a sexual predator. He seemed very interested in her, and that the fact of he let her, flirt with him and give
Yeah,
off all those signals of, yes, I want to be with you, Mr. Old Forester Man.
and of course,
Because he was an older man.
yeah, like he was
Obviously
balding,
showing by the balding and
the overall stature.
yes.
Literally, I think her and her wolf would have had sex, and then he would have killed her. But of
Yes.
course, we've pretty much decided already that it is a metaphorical game,
Mhm.
and as such, I felt that it could represent Carmen's taste in men. Like, there are hints that she does prefer older, dangerous men. And for a 16, 17-year-old girl, that's pretty unrealistic.
Yes.
Which eventually led to, say, some traumatic incident regarding that.
More than likely, possibly rape. Because
Yes.
I would say this would be the only instance in the game of rape, really. Because this
Probably.
game has been talked about as being controversial because supposedly each of the girls get raped
But,
at the end.
yeah,
But
after
uh,
playing it for 10 minutes, you kind of realize, like, that isn't what it kind of hints at with the whole waking up in the rain.
yeah,
Me personally, I would say Carmen and Ruby are the ones,
that
because
yeah,
with Ruby, when we get to her, I'll explain what I mean, but... And Carmen's grandmother's house, that was... odd.
what were some of the different rooms? Because I really don't remember. It's been a while since I watched Carmen.
Same, I went through and got most of her items. I know most of the rooms had to do with trees and woodsmanship, which are kind of different from that they actually related to the wolf,
Well,
but
in a sense, trees represent nature, and nature represents the cycle of life, and therefore could represent sexual activity,
yeah.
and therefore, or it could be symbolizing that she did have a traumatic incident within the forest
Uh,
itself, or within life, because we have talked about the forest being life.
Yeah. As well, there are a lot of saw blades and accompanying moanings. Literally, that could relate to the murderer theory, but at the same
Yeah.
time, it also symbolizes the dangers of Carmen's trying too hard to mature early, I guess. That's why
Now, what about her final room?
her final run. That one I found to actually be the most sexual imagery out of all of it, with the large tree penetrating the bed, possibly representing the phallus, and the moaning coupled with it.
Yeah,
That kind of set off my mind that even more sexual imagery.
yeah. Overall, Carmen was probably the most sexual character out of them all.
Most likely, well, yeah.
Well, I mean, not just with her wolf, but within just all the imagery and all just how she acted.
Yeah. As well,
And
I think I forgot to write it down here.